Map. We finally did it, chúc mừng năm mới.
Chúc mừng năm mới, bro. Các bạn ơi, Phúc Mop Day. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, brother. For those that are watching, not just listening, but watching on YouTube, don't adjust your video screen. Those words did come out of my new friend's mouth. He is a spectacular Vietnamese English teacher. He is has a huge affinity for the Vietnamese culture. I found him on social media. He's probably one of my family's favorite to watch. Phuc Map, thank you so much for making the time today, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. Just finishing up work and always happy to take part in podcasts. It's definitely a hobby of mine. Haven't started my own, but I love having good conversations.
Yeah, brother. This is super exciting for me. I'm a fan. I love what you do. And I have to confess, I probably learn more from your videos than I have going through 5 years of Vietnamese school growing up in the Bay Area. So good for you. So
That's the
tell me,
goal.
tell me,
That's what I'm going for.
dude, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get into this whole, the culture itself? Also you have a huge love for it, but how did this come about?
Okay, so in 2014, I was working in a bar in downtown Orlando. And at that time, I went from working the door to being a bar back to being a bartender and making a good income for,
Mhm.
someone that used to work in a restaurant in college. So I was very excited with the job I had, but a wise older friend told me, he said, if you don't stop, you're gonna blink your eyes and wake up 20 years later and still be working in this bar with
Mhm.
no life experience. And it really stuck with me. And he said, I don't mean like going to England, Ireland, Australia, go somewhere completely different that's gonna, shock you culturally. So I learned more about teaching English abroad. I looked at my choices from Spain to Korea to Japan and then Southeast Asia,
Mhm.
settled on Vietnam. Very glad that I did, but I only intended on staying there a year. I realized, wow, this language is really hard. It's probably going to be very difficult to learn. Maybe I won't try.
Mhm.
But then I started dating my wife, and
Mhm.
that was the motivation I needed. It kept me there, pushed me to learn the language. And then she's actually the reason that I started going on the internet, on social media, kind of displaying my skills, if you will, but
Uh-huh.
mixed in with my personality and my humor. And it caught on very quickly.
Isn't it funny? At the end of the day, at the end of every success story, there is a woman involved.
Yes, yes. Success story or failure, it
Yeah,
goes both
I
ways, but
I agree,
I'm
man.
happy to be on the success end at the moment.
So how did you meet your wife?
So she actually had her family's house right down the street from where I taught. So we had some mutual friends that introduced us, and I asked her out and keep it. It was very traditional.
Mhm.
I've said on Vietnamese television they ask about the experience dating a Vietnamese woman, and man, I was shocked. She was 27, 28. We're the same age, a month apart,
Mhm.
and she's like, I have to be home by midnight. I was, what? You gotta be home by midnight. What do you
Yeah,
mean? She's like, oh, I'll get in trouble. I'm not supposed to come home late like that.
right,
And I found that traditionally in Vietnam, you live with the family until you get married and you have a curfew, at
right,
least as a girl.
right. And in some instance, once you get married, the family comes with you, and it's multi-generation, right, in one household.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I lived that experience. I'm still living with my wife's family, coming up on 4 years now.
Okay. So you moved, right?
Yeah. So
With a little bit of our interaction, you just recently moved from Florida to Kentucky.
well, yeah, I'm doing a circle.
Okay.
Okay. So it's like a lot of people are confused with my situation, but so for the last 8 years, I was a full-time English teacher. And
Okay.
then the last 4 years, I had my social media job on the side as well,
Mm.
MC, TV, and things like that. But now that my wife finally got approved for her green card over here, that gives us the option to go around because she'd never been to America.
Yeah.
She'd never physically met my parents until August when we came over
Hmm.
because COVID, obviously.
Right.
The
Right.
consulate basically shut down. She couldn't do her interview for a green card. So we applied 3.5 years ago. I mean, it's been a
Wow.
long process.
Wow.
So now I have the 5 year marriage visa for Vietnam, and I have the option to go Kentucky, Florida, and Vietnam and pretty much just go in a circle.
Well, I'm gonna throw something else out there. Stop by Las Vegas, Nevada, where
Mhm.
I'm at. So pay us a visit. We'll
I want
definitely
to.
host you, man. Please do. Please do. We'll talk more
I,
about that
I
offline for sure, brother.
I actually partied with a guy in Canta this summer
Oh,
who's a Vietnamese nail tech
mhm.
in Las Vegas, and I told him I'd definitely hit him up if I was over there. So
Yeah, yeah. We'll talk offline. Please do. I would love to do that. So
that'd
you
be
spent
great.
roughly 8 years in Vietnam teaching English, right? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
So how
pretty
long did
much. I mean, almost to the T 8 years, pretty much like to the month.
right? How long did it take you to feel comfortable enough to be able to teach though? Because of all the languages, I mean, there's a lot of difficult languages, obviously, but Vietnamese is so nuanced because the inflection of words, right? One word can mean
Mhm.
five different things. So how did that journey feel for you? You know, was it rough? Was it tough? Or did you take to it, or how was the process?
So I was very lucky to have found a program. It was called Language Core. It's actually defunct now, but when I
Mm,
went through it, it was a good program. And basically, they owned a hotel in Cambodia, and they would bring people like me from England, Australia, America that wanted to teach English, in Asia, and
mm-hmm.
they would make us teach in Cambodia, but like literally go through the methods. And to be honest, a lot of people ask like that, like, oh, if you don't know the language, how can you teach English? It's more of delivering a language to someone without knowing their language. Like you hold up a
Mm.
ball, you say, what's this? Ball, repeat after me, ball, this is a ball, and you just build on that.
Oh.
And so we spent 2 weeks in Cambodia, learning and teaching there, and then their office in Vietnam. We spent 2 weeks there learning, and then from there I got connected with my language school, and
Mm-hmm.
they have their own resources, and from there it was just yeah, you learn as you go. I'll be honest, my first class of 15-year-olds, I said I don't think I can do this. They were
Right.
crazy. I couldn't control them.
Right.
But then 6, 7 weeks in, I kind of bonded with them and got that connection. And then from then on, man, it went by in a blink of an eye for sure.
Can you still remember the very first time you stepped foot in Vietnam? Your impression, the feeling, stuff like that?
Yes.
What was your
Took a
impression,
bus
or,
from,
or how did the feeling hit you?
I was relieved. I'm gonna be
Oh,
honest with you.
okay.
Because so the program started in Cambodia, but
Uh-huh.
as I mentioned, I'd never left the country before, and I said, well, if I'm just packing everything up and going,
Hmm.
I'm gonna go to Thailand first, spend a month there.
Sure.
Then I'm gonna take a train. I think we took a train. Yeah, took a train down to Malaysia, spend a week there, and then fly to Cambodia 2 weeks, and then Vietnam. So get a feel for the whole area. And each place had its positives and its negatives.
Of course.
But to be honest, I was in District 3 of Saigon. And I remember coming out of my hotel the first morning and I said, whoo, I'm so glad I chose this country
Right.
over Thailand, over Cambodia, because for living, I just felt like Vietnam was the best mix. And there's many factors to that, but
Sure.
yeah, everything. It was the right choice.
And there's a lot of what people don't realize too. There's a lot of like subcultures within the culture as well too. You go to different district, you go to different towns, villages, and stuff like that. There's definitely plenty of different cultures within the culture.
Oh
One
yeah,
thing, I mean,
54 ethnic minorities in
yes,
Vietnam.
yeah, yeah. A lot of the indigenous people, like people don't even realize we have, the Vietnamese culture, Vietnamese country has a lot of indigenous people as well too. So, um,
Mhm.
explain the best you can because I still tell people unless you see it for yourself you just won't get it. Explain the traffic and basically situation over there when it comes to vehicles if you can.
It is no holds barred,
Yep.
from the street, going the wrong way, driving on the sidewalk,
Hmm.
5 people on a bike, a refrigerator on the back of a bike, a whole pig,
Yep.
dogs riding on there. I mean, it's literally no holds barred. But at the same time, it has a proper flow. And
Yes.
after the first couple weeks, you kind of just glide with traffic. It's very
Hmm.
scary, but you get a hold of it fairly quickly. And then before I knew it, I had a rental motorbike and I was driving from up by the airport
Hmm.
down to District 6, which is like a 30 to 45-minute drive during rush hour. And I was doing that 5, 6 days a week. And I just got to Vietnam. So
Yeah.
I got the handle on it real quick.
Yeah. I think that's what you said. Flow is the key word. I think those that get hesitant or nervous, that's what breaks up the flow. That's when it gets dangerous. But it's a weird it's a weird chaos that works, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's controlled chaos, basically.
So Vietnam, when you got there, you started teaching. You're starting to embrace the culture. What surprised you, if anything at all? And what similarities do you found that surprised you as far as comparing it to the West as well? But just talk to me a little bit about some of the culture aspects of it.
I would say, um, going back to the feeling of relief when I showed up there, I would say that people in Vietnam resemble the West more than, say, Cambodia and Thailand. And I
Mm,
say that because I felt like more people were focused on going to work and spending time with their friends and family versus the tourists. Okay. So in Cambodia, everywhere you go, there's kids, adults, old people coming up to you, trying to sell you something, ask for money, do a trick for money. Thailand, everybody's trying to sell you a tour and get you in a tuk-tuk. And Vietnam has areas that do that. But where I was and where I lived most of the time, people might stare, but they don't try to sell you something. They don't try to
mm,
scam you. They don't try to, and everybody was like, they wear, as we say, Western
mm,
office clothes. They're going to their job. Everybody's just focused on them versus Thailand and Cambodia, where it was just more like, okay, tourist, hey, give me $1. I'll do this. I got a
yeah.
bracelet for sale, something like that. Um, on the flip side, I would say a big difference was that Vietnam, they love their lunch hour.
Mm,
Everything closes for lunch.
yeah.
The bank, even the hospital. They're like,
Hmm.
oh, and the doctor gets back from lunch. They're like, it's not an emergency. You can wait. I'm like,
Right.
so a lot of things. It's like that saying, eat true. Like they
Hmm.
sleep, they rest for lunch. My
Yep.
school, all the office staff would pull out like a yoga mat and go to
Hmm.
sleep under their desk. I'm like, what? So that was a big difference as well.
Yeah, for those listening, what Fook was saying was, we call it lunch hour, but man, it extends because after a 3, 4, share family style lunch meal, possibly, you're taking half an hour, 45-minute nap too. And I think that's why it's ingrained in me. I love naps, brother. And I think it's probably
Yeah.
ingrained in me, in my DNA.
I mean, I think it's good. I think
I
it's good
do.
for the health.
I
And
do
if
too.
everyone's on the same schedule, then whatever. But
Yeah.
when you wake up late and you got to go to the bank and it's 11:30, you go, oh no, oh,
Right,
I can't
right.
make it to the bank till 1:30.
So how did the process work? Within those 8 years, you were going back and forth to the States, right? You going home and then back to Vietnam, home, back to Vietnam, I assume?
I maybe I was just lucky, or maybe I just worked at a good language school, which
Hmm.
it was a very good language school, but they always handled my visa. So I
Oh.
never actually did a visa run and went out, over to where's the place? Mop Chow, I think it's called.
Hmm.
The Cambodian border crossing, which all my, friends had to do. I'm like, I've never done that. I just renew it at work and I would have a 2-year visa every 2 years. And my thing, I went home for Christmas 2015, and then after that I go, wait a minute, that holiday is in January or February.
Hmm.
I'm off of work almost 2 weeks anyways. I might as well just go home during that time. So I came home every year for February, except for 2019 and then 2020 and 2021.
Hmm.
2019, I went to Laos for my birthday in February. And then 2020, 2021, the rule was with the COVID lockdown, if I left Vietnam, basically I couldn't come back.
Right.
And I couldn't leave my wife there and my puppy. So I wasn't going to just leave and hope I could come back within the year.
Yeah.
So I stayed in Vietnam 2020 and 2021.
It's safe to say, you being so ingrained integrated into the culture, living there, it probably came a point where you really fell in love with the culture. I assume. Do you
You
remember
know,
that point where you're like, oh man, like it hit me? You know what I mean?
I thought it was early on, but it really wasn't until I started learning Vietnamese. And then
Mm,
I'm, I was just doing a TV show for VTV4 and they asked me a similar question. And I shared that, Vietnam's the perfect country for me
mm,
because at least in Saigon, I know Hanoi is a little different in the general attitude, but they're still friendly with me. But in Saigon, I can walk up to anyone on the street start a conversation, and they will give me a couple minutes of their time, like
Mhm.
willingly, not
Mhm.
annoyed, not like, no, 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 no. If I come up and speak just a little Vietnamese, they want to have a conversation with me.
Yeah.
And I took that, full speed ahead where I would talk to everyone every day. So at least the phrases that I knew at the time, phrases that I know in my vocabulary, I got a lot of practice with those, and I got to
Yeah.
see what worked. Sometimes people go, and I go, oh, I'm not saying that right. They would ask a question, I would develop good comebacks, and then build the conversation from there. So I would say when I got more comfortable with conversation in Vietnamese is when I
Mhm.
felt like, oh, I'm Vietnamese. All these foreign backpackers, I'm not that anymore. I'm Vietnamese now.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I think they appreciate the effort and the appreciation, but like I said, because Vietnamese, the language itself, it's probably not anyone's first choice in learning just because of how complex it is, right? So I think for any Vietnamese person to see a foreigner learn it, then there has to be this type of bond that just naturally happens. So I'm so happy that you did. And the Vietnamese culture, man, one of the subcultures I'm talking about is the nightlife. People don't realize Vietnam has a freaking nightlife. The folks like to drink. They like to
Oh yeah.
nyao, right? And it's not like when
Yep.
you go and eat bar food, you're having a feast, and it could be just curbside with little chairs and little tables, but it happens almost every day.
I have one of the most unique experiences with Meow
Mm-hmm.
than that you'll ever see in a foreigner. And I
Okay.
confidently say that because my wife owned a Wan Meow for
Oh,
years,
okay.
and I was there every night,
Okay.
every night. Luckily, at that time, I didn't drink. I had periods in Vietnam where I wouldn't drink for a year and a half or two
Mm,
years. Most of the time I was in Vietnam, I didn't drink at all.
okay.
But when my wife owned a Wan Yao, it was walking distance from my house, and she had to be there late night, so I would stay there late night. And yeah, you you are 100% correct. That Nyao culture, it wasn't just hers, but you
Mm,
could just walk down the street and it's one Nyao, one Nyao, one Nyao, and that's just our district. It's
mm-hmm.
in every district, and she would have people stay there till 6 in the morning, still drinking Tiger, and I'm like,
Right.
working in Orlando, we kick them out at 2. Like
Right.
if you're
Right.
here by 2:30, we can push you out the door. And she's like, no, if they have a big group and they're still drinking, they stay as late as they want, and we
Right.
have to stay. I'm like, what? So
Right.
yes, it is. And I read when it comes to Southeast Asia,
Uh-huh.
Vietnam has the highest consumption of beer per capita than any of the other countries.
Beer with an ice cube.
Yep.
Yeah. So you
It's
know what?
still
I have
weird to me, but I
yeah, for
drink
a
it.
lot of people it's weird at first, right? But I have to self-admit, right, that being an immigrant coming to America, love America. My parents and myself, our first priority is getting integrated and being American, which we are, right? So as part of that, the negative side of this is that I kind of lost touch with my heritage for a bit, and I
Mhm.
kind of regained it. I want to say probably over the last 15 years. I'm 46 now, and it was through
Oh
travel.
wow, you hold it
Yeah,
well. You hold it well.
yeah, thank you, brother. It was through travel, and it was through food, rediscovering my food origin, and a lot of it. I have to say, rest in peace. Thanks to guys like Anthony Bourdain. You see guys that do these travel shows. They keep saying, "Oh my gosh, the food in Vietnam, the people in Vietnam, the food in Vietnam, the people in Vietnam." And now I have to say, biasly or not, I think we have some of the best freaking variety of foods and flavors there is in the world you know.
Mhm.
So I don't want to cause drama or controversy, but I'm gonna have to ask you a couple of questions to make you pick. Okay. So for you,
Okay.
sir, for you, pho or boom boy?
Oh, definitely Boom Ba Hue all day, all day.
Good answer.
I
Good
get
answer.
why pho is popular.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as a strong of a flavor, so it appeals to a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
But after my experience, and I had a lot of experience because I always eat outside in Vietnam anyways.
Uh-huh.
Boom Ba Hue all day. That's the way
Boom,
to go.
boom boy all day. I tell you what, you talked to me 5 years ago, I would disagree, but lately, I'm telling you, that's it. The spiciness of it, the complexity of flavor. How about Roy Kung or Jia Yaw?
I'm more of a chả y'all guy. I like the fried. I can eat gỏi cuốn. I like gỏi cuốn, but
Mhm.
yeah, if I have to choose, chả y'all. My wife just made a ton of them for Christmas for my family. I
Mhm.
think total was like 47 rolls, handmade, and some of the best I've ever had. And when you see what goes into it, she's like, "This is why restaurants here in America,
Mhm.
they're chả y'all, squee bop. It's not as good as
Correct.
Vietnam because they don't put the work. She
Yes.
has the taro, she has the onions, she has the garlic, she's
Whew.
got the pork, she got
Mm.
everything, and it took her all morning just to make everything before rolling it. And then when you see what goes into it, you realize why it's such a good dish.
And
But I made
you,
a video where I went and made goikun as well, and that's
uh,
also complex.
do you eat your jiao straight, or do you do the lettuce wrap, the fish sauce, mama, and everything too?
I'll do it with the lettuce. We had that at my house.
Mhm.
But I feel the same way about Korean and Japanese barbecue. I prefer it just straight up.
Yeah.
Like even, the barbecue where they have the noon and
Uh-huh.
they'll have the vegetables. I'm like, no, 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 no. Just give me the meat. I want the meat and the sauce, and that's it. Chả y'all, give me nook mam or tungut,
Yeah.
and I'm good.
Well, you know what? Can't argue with that, man. I got one more that has to do with
Mhm.
food. This is a tough one, my friend. Okay, because this is
Okay.
two cultures. If you had to give up either pizza or Vietnamese banh mi, which one would you give up if you had to?
Sorry, banh mi. You hit the nail on the head with that. That's my favorite food, pizza. So
Oh, all
I'll
right.
give up anything. I'll give up anything before pizza. That's my biggest thing, and
Yeah.
my wife gets sick of it because I don't care if it's Totino's from Walmart.
Uh-huh.
I'll take that over just about other any other dish. I fold it like a taco and just,
Yep.
man, I can't resist pizza.
Okay. How about this last question? Is pineapple okay on a pizza?
I think so. I
I
think
think
it
so
is.
too. People make a big deal of
It's
it.
good to
Thank you.
experiment.
I'm telling you,
Not
man.
the
I'm
number
telling you.
one
Well, I love it.
choice, but I'll eat it either way. It doesn't matter.
So what's keeping you busy nowadays? You're back in the States, so I know you did a quick move, or at least you're gonna do a stint in Kentucky. You got a couple businesses. What else is going on in your life? What's keeping you busy nowadays?
So it's a constant cycle of work. In Vietnam, as I said, I was a full time English teacher, taught
Hmm.
pretty much every day. I think I took Mondays off, but I would teach. And then when I wasn't teaching, I would be filming. And when I wasn't filming, I'd be editing. And when I wasn't editing, I'd be doing a TV show. And I'm someone that likes to stay busy. I
Hmm.
don't like to sit around. I haven't had a subscription to Netflix since the lockdown in Vietnam. I don't watch cable TV. I rarely even watch movies anymore. I
Hmm.
don't like to just be complacent and lay around. To me, I'm always doing something, and there's always a video to edit. There's always social media to deal with. So, right before we got on this podcast, I was editing my newest video for YouTube from
Hmm.
Cần Thơ. I took a long Mekong Delta trip this summer,
Hmm.
and in my opinion, it's an awesome video. And I have plenty of videos left to release from Vietnam.
Hmm.
So until I get back for my next TV show, hopefully right after that, then I'm gonna be releasing these videos. And obviously, Vietnamese word of the day.
I'm definitely going to support. I'll put all the links in the description, and at the end, I'll let you, kind of promote yourself a little bit too. So you do everything you do
Appreciate it,
is
buddy.
self production.
Yes, even the first 6 months of YouTube, I would type all the subtitles in Vietnamese and English myself.
Yeah.
My wife would check to make sure it's correct, but I did everything. And then I realized, okay, I'm wasting hours of time typing these subtitles when I can get this
Create.
to somebody else. So
Mhm.
my wife actually did it for like 2 years. And now one of my old coworkers in Vietnam, an English teacher, Vietnamese guy, he does my subtitles straight to YouTube. No more putting them on the video. But aside from that, filming and editing and social media comments and
Mhm.
uploading all that, I do all that still.
So obviously, you started off as a passion project, and you're gaining a lot of traction. A lot of people know you. Actually, when I gave a lot of my friends a heads up that you and I would be chatting, they were really excited. So congratulations on the following, the growth.
Thank you.
What are your hopes? Do you have an idea where you want to take the brand for yourself? Fook Map is a brand. Any ideas that you
Mhm.
want to talk about, or is it just kind of just see where life takes you?
You know, sometimes people will get lucky and
Hmm.
go viral with something. You know, you have a video, whatever, but I've done that so many times just being me and sharing what I know in this very small niche of a foreigner speaking Vietnamese. I've been a meme in Vietnam so many times. I've been the number one trending video on TikTok. I've been on the number one TV show in Vietnam.
Yeah.
I've done it so many times that I know it's not luck. Like something I'm doing, you
Hmm.
know, whether I notice it or not, something I'm doing works. So for the brand, I actually had a student who turned out to be my friend. He asked me this in the beginning. He's like, well, what are you trying to do with all of this? And I said, look, you know, money aside and views and subscribers aside, in the end, I want every Vietnamese person in Vietnam or abroad. If someone came up to you and said, "Are there any foreigners that speak your language?" I want the first
Mm.
answer from everyone to go, "Ah, Phuc Ma." Yeah. You don't have to like me. You don't have to think I'm even funny. But you have to appreciate, you have to understand and acknowledge
Yeah.
what I've accomplished. And be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, Phuc Ma, you know, he's not the most fluent, he's kind of funny, but he's definitely done it. And he's been on TV, been in feature films, you know,
Yeah.
done all these different things. He's
Yeah.
definitely done it. So that's my end goal, is just acknowledging what's been done, I guess I
Well,
could say.
well, I would definitely think you're on that trajectory for sure. I mean, you're definitely funny. You're charismatic. You pronounce better than I do, to be honest with you. And I think one of those things
Thank
that
you.
I said earlier was the complexity of the language, the culture, for you to, whether by luck or by chance, that you pick this and you're excelling at it, says a lot of dedication. And I think at the end of the day, that's what people recognize too, is that dedication, right? And you know, the appreciation for the culture, man. So that's cool, man. You were about to say something?
I appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah,
No, I
for
was
sure.
just gonna say, and on that note, I find it in the beginning of the, you know, you'll get some hate comments, right? I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna get
Yeah,
hate
dude.
comments.
Yeah.
But now it's almost turned into like a comedic thing for me, where it's the people that leave these comments that go
Hmm.
on, you know, people have said, oh, when you move back to America, you're going to be a nobody. Nobody's going to care about you. You're just lucky you're in Vietnam. But I look at it like, no, I'm someone that's found success in whatever I say, hey, I'm going to do this. I
Hmm.
found success in it. And it doesn't matter if I go into the nail business here, or I try to be an actor here, or
Hmm.
whatever it is. Like, I'm confident in myself and I've already done it over and over again. So I'm just going to keep doing it. So when you start to get exposed to more people and people kind of run their mouth in the comments, like,
Hmm.
it just, it makes you go, all right, well, I know I've been successful at what I've done, and there's a reason you're leaving negative comments on people's posts, because you'll probably never be successful in what you're doing, or you
One
wouldn't have time to go on online and do that.
1000%. Because I challenge people this all the time: is find someone super negative and tell me how their life is. Are they happy? Are they successful? Because successful can mean different things for different people. But I go back to, are they happy? Because most happy
Mhm.
people, if not all happy people, don't have the time to be an asshole, to be honest with you, nor do they wish to be, right? And anyone that's ahead of you, or has a further path in success than you, they never look back to criticize the people that criticize the
They
people aren't
don't
doing
go
anything.
down. They don't punch
Yeah,
down.
yeah, they
Exactly.
don't punch down, dude. So, and honestly, one of my mentors told me years ago. He said, "Hey, chase that negative, chase that hater, because unless someone hates you, you're not real." So, congratulations for being real. You know what I mean? It's true,
Thank
man.
you,
It's
sir. Thank you.
anything, whether it's content creation, business, what have you. So that's awesome, man. What any plans on going back to Vietnam anytime soon?
Yes. So I've been in talks with a production company.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very honored. I use this word a lot because, you know, that's how I feel about it. But the Department of Tourism is trying to push tourism deep into the Mekong Delta, and
Mm-hmm.
they're doing a show in Kamau,
Mm-hmm.
trying to just have like almost a discovery show. And I've done one of these shows on VTV already,
Mm-hmm.
but they reached out to me, and, you know, according to them, they really want me to be the host. And I said, hey, you know, if you can pay for my ticket out and give me a base salary,
Yeah.
I'm down. You know,
Yeah.
I anytime I have a reason to go back to Vietnam, I'm
Yeah.
back in Vietnam, and that's the plan. So hopefully after the Tet holiday, we
Hmm.
work something out with the contract, and then I'll be right back after Tet.
Man, what a life, man. What a life to go and travel and get paid for whatever the salary is. Hopefully it's a good enough for a solid living, but the life experience, I mean, let's bring it around full circle. This all started just because you decided or someone put it in your ear, hey man, there's a big world out there. Get out of Florida, see what else is out there, and you took the action, right? And I tell people this all the time. It's like whatever you're working hard for, the material stuff, that shit fades. You know what doesn't fade? Experience, memories, adventure. That stuff lives you forever. And you're an epitome of that.
Mhm.
So congratulations on that, man. To me, I think that's a win already. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Yeah.
And people talk about money, and yeah, of course, we all want money and
Sure.
want to buy our time and be able to do what we want. But someone else presented this, and I can't remember where I heard it, but they said, "All right, look back at the last 5 or 10 years of your life. Think about, were you happy? Were you happy with
Hmm.
what you did? Where you were at, the decisions you made? Were you happy?" And I look back and I go, well, at least the last 8 years, I was very happy. I
Hmm.
was so happy. And I look at how much I made, and I'm like, well, it wasn't anything to brag about, but did I have enough? Yeah. I
Hmm.
was never starving. I never was needing for anything. So it showed me that for the rest of my life, as long as I have money to provide food and shelter and clothes, for
Hmm.
my family and myself, my happiness depends on, am I doing what I want to do? And
Yep.
that's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, man. Everything above, food, shelter, and then your tribe, as in your family, your close friends. Anything above and beyond that is just stuff. You know what I mean? It really is. And my wife and I got trapped in that because I live in corporate America for years. My wife and I now have ventured off and we have our own real estate business, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had some successes, but as far as our joy and our happiness, it hasn't changed, man. It really hasn't changed because whatever it is that you deem as your source of happiness, and if you can build it outside of the finances, then I think you have the right target. You know what I mean? Like for you is travel, food, your wife, experiences, things like that. Those require money, but it doesn't require for you to be a billionaire. Don't strive to be like that. You know what I mean? Um, Dude, so tell me a little bit about some of the TV shows you were on. You said you've been on some TV shows in Vietnam, what have you?
Yeah, I have to go chronologically for you so I don't miss
Sure.
any. I've been very I'll start by saying, like, my whole thing with this, and
Hmm.
presented to me by my wife and best friend when they encouraged me to start the YouTube channel, was to fill a niche. There's not
Hmm.
really a foreigner who speaks Vietnamese, travels, reviews food, and it is humorous. There wasn't, back in 2018 when I started this. And when I started it, I went viral for a video. I'm not sure if you've seen this one. My first viral video, I put a pet chicken on a leash and walked it around Saigon
Hmm.
and wore dobo no women's
Hmm.
pajamas.
Hmm.
And before I even put that video out, people had taken pictures of me, and I was on the national news that night. And I,
Uh-huh.
I watched that, and that's when it all kind of blew up. And then that was April 2019. And at the beginning of summer 2019, a TV show reached out to me, or a TV network, and they wanted to give me my own TV show called Một Ngày của Phúc Mập on
Mm.
HTV9. And I said, oh, I made it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really make it because they were only paying me $100 an episode, even though it's my show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we filmed about 7 or 8 episodes. And from there, later that year, I did a game show called Isla Somot, who's number one. I won that game show, got paid $250 for that one. And that was a huge one because it had like over 50 million views or something.
Wow.
The next year, um, I did I did some talk shows with
Uh,
MCV. And then towards the end of 2020, there's a show called Nyep Yeah Tui Top on Friday night prime time. And do you know that phrase, Nyep Yeah Tui Top, in
no.
Vietnamese?
No.
It means, do when in Rome, do as the Romans do,
Okay. Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So they wanted us to compare our culture as foreigners to Vietnamese culture. You know, how do we
Mm.
feel about this? How do we feel about that? And it was me, a Nigerian, a Palestinian, a Russian, a French girl, a Korean, and they would switch out the cast. But I did 9 episodes and we got to debate in Vietnamese. That
Wow.
was a lot of fun
Wow.
and a good test for my Vietnamese because millions of people are watching me argue about dog meat and this and
Yeah.
that in Vietnamese. And I'm like, but it was good. And then this summer, I did another game show on VTV4 and then, or VTV3, and then VTV4 invited me to be the host of a Discovery show, kind of like Discovery Channel, but
Uh,
the English speaking channel in Vietnam. And then I came back to America in August and I got invited to be on Hai Ngày Một Đêm, 2 days, 1 night, which
mhm.
right now is the hottest TV show in Vietnam and my wife's favorite show. So she stayed here in America. She's like, you go back, you do it. You know, that's a
Wow.
great show. You can't pass up that opportunity. And to me, I didn't care if I had to pay for everything myself and they didn't even pay me.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
an investment in my brand
Yes.
because now just on YouTube, over 20 million people have seen those episodes, not
Wow.
counting national TV. And went back. I was happy with my performance. But while I was back, I did a show with VTV4. I filmed another episode for Vietnam Discovery. I
Mhm.
got on Walk Hoi Vietnam. And yeah, I did 4 TV shows within 3 weeks of being back.
Damn, brother. So it's nonstop for real.
Yeah, and then last year I did a cameoed in a feature film because of my chicken video that I told you about.
Yeah, yeah.
The director messaged me. He's like, "I like your chicken video. I want you in my movie." I said, "Oh, great! So like I'm the star?" He's like, "No, you're just the neighbor, but you're the only foreigner in the movie." I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's
Well,
cool."
you
So I had a couple lines.
yeah. I was gonna say at least you'll be rememberable for sure, right? No matter what.
I hope so. I
Yeah,
hope
you will,
so
brother.
because
Trust me.
it was in theaters, and then
Uh,
even on Vietnam Airlines, I have a picture. You could watch that movie on the plane,
uh.
and I was like, "God,
So, of all the places you've been in Vietnam, what stands out to you the most? Well, I don't want to use it. Let's use it. What's your favorite? What location is your favorite? And why, if you don't
two
mind me asking?
spots,
Okay.
of course, 2 spots, Hai Yang and Phong Nha, because after traveling around for 8 years, I went to all the major cities in the
Mm-hmm.
places that I went. For example, Bangkok, Phnom Penh, Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Tokyo, Osaka, Taipei,
Mm.
um, Seoul, and Busan. So all major cities in those countries. And after I finished that, I was like, I don't really care about these big cities. Like the
Right.
food's great,
Right.
but they're all kind of the same.
Right.
I like nature. I like being out in the jungle and seeing things. So some of my favorite trips out of Vietnam were Borneo and Laos because I spent time in the jungle, whatever else. But
Mm.
in Vietnam, Hai Yang is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Mm.
Just beautiful mountains and rice paddies for days.
Mm-hmm.
Phom Nha, 300 caves, the largest cave in the world. Did a huge hike, swam into a cave, went rock
Wow.
climbing in a cave. So both those places I would go back to over and over again.
See, take religious out of it, but do you feel like you have a spiritual experience with it when you go to places like that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we lose touch with nature in
Mm-hmm.
general and just being out. When I feel better when I look out and just see these mountains and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just standing there breathing that air. I mean, it is cleaner than the air in Saigon and Hanoi, but
Right.
standing there, I'm just like, man, like honestly, the older I get, the more I just want a house right next to one of these mountains,
Oh,
just relax out in nature forever. That's all I
yeah.
want.
Wake up, drink your cafe soda, look over the cliff, and see all the greenery. I mean, very few sceneries that can beat that for sure.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
from the bottom of your heart and through your experience, help the audience understand how important it is to go outside of your comfort zone. And more importantly, or as important, to also travel to see the world because also it changed your life, the trajectory of your life, right?
Mhm.
Talk to them about that, man.
So, as I mentioned, bar regular that was a friend of mine, very wise guy. You know, he was well traveled, and he told me that he's like, you need to get out. You need to go somewhere where they don't speak your language, where they don't look like you, where their
Mm,
culture's different. You need to experience that and see another thing. And after doing this, I met people from Israel, Singapore, and South Korea who were
mm,
forced in Vietnam, who are required to be in the military or the police
mm,
as per the law in their country, right?
mm,
Which in those countries, fine. That's how they want to do it. But I think a better thing would be almost like an incentive if people got out of their country and had to spend, let's say, 3 months in another country that spoke a different language, like an exchange program,
mm,
not so much for school, but for
mm,
living. And I
mm,
think it would fight a lot of the bigotry, a lot of the racism,
mm.
in general, because I admit I had no idea about different Asian cultures until I lived in Asia. I'd
Right.
never eaten Vietnamese food. I didn't know the difference between that and Korean food. And going over there, that just it blew my mind. Like to see, I
Yeah.
could spot Koreans or Chinese on how they dressed and how they acted at tourist spots because I was around it so much. And I think it doesn't have to be Asia, it doesn't have to be Vietnam. But I think if someone goes and lives in Peru, or someone goes and lives in Ghana,
Mm.
or you just get out of your comfort zone, you go somewhere where they look different, they speak different, they do different things, you're forced to be a part of that culture for just a few months. I think it would open up a lot of eyes.
I agree 1000% because that is, my wife and I, that's our love language is travel, and obviously, now the world opening back up, we're so excited to do that again. And when we say travel, I want to travel like Philip, meaning that I want to dive into the culture. I have a lot of friends that quote unquote travel and they stay
Mhm.
at the Four Seasons or the resort every country they go. I'm like, that's not traveling. You're just moving your suitcase. You know what I mean?
Like going to Hard Rock Casino in all the different countries. Like, what's the difference?
I
Like,
know, right? It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But yeah, you gotta be with the people, and I always say, you gotta be in the people and you eat the street food, you talk to grandma, you talk to uncle, and you experience that. And you see the beauty about traveling is you see how different people are, but then you realize at the same time, at the core of it, we're all the same. We're so similar.
yes,
You know what I mean? It's
yes.
like it's at the end of the day, people just want to be happy. They want to feel safe. They want to, love their friends and family. They want their children to have a better, future than they did. I think the premise of people are all the same. And you were talking about, it shuts down bigotry and racism and all that just stems from not understanding. And the only
Hmm.
way, well, not the only way, but the best way to understand anybody and their culture is to just dive into it, man. Dive into it first, right? So and you,
Completely agree.
if you're lucky like Fook and you're single, you might meet your wife or spouse. So that's an added bonus, right?
That story, man, just living there and meeting so many people, that story played out for other people as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Not so much the YouTube and the social
Mm,
media space, but I met guys that came from just random
mm,
places, met their wife. Now they got 3, 4 kids. They live there 7, 10, 12, 15 years,
mm.
and their whole life's changed simply from finding love in another country. And yeah, and to me, I had this conversation with a customer earlier because a lot of customers here like to ask about Vietnam.
Sure.
And to me, I think the values of the women there are just at
Mm.
a different level when it comes to family values and
Yeah.
how life is kind of supposed to go, where it's like you live with the family, okay, you get married, now you're with the husband, and then now you have kids. And obviously that's idealistic and it's not going to be true for everyone, but I was very afraid of even thinking about getting married until I met my wife. And in
Mm.
one of the first news interviews I had in Vietnam, like 2019, they asked me like what attracted you to your wife, and I'm like, I saw how she took care of her family in general, her nephews and nieces, but her family in general, and just so caring. And it was all genuine. It wasn't like
Mm.
a fake show, like, oh, the boyfriend's over, I gotta make it. No, that she does that.
Mm.
And I said, man, I could marry that girl. Like, I just that blew me away, and it
Right.
held true. We're coming up on 5 years of marriage, and it's still like, I've lived with the family 4 years. I know how it goes now. And yeah, it changed my views on getting married. That's for sure.
Wow. And plus, meeting the right person, obviously, right? And then you guys,
Of
have
course.
that same goal. Um, so as we approach wrapping up, because I don't want to take too much up of your time, and I would love to do this again through your journey and keep in touch. And when I said that
Mhm.
invite about, hey man, hit me up when you come to Vegas, I do mean that. Please do. We'll host you
I would love to.
and we'll go to
Be cool.
some nice dinners, man. But I hear people, I bet you there's people listening to this right now and said, well, easy for Folk to do. He has such, an open adventure personality. He has good charisma. Of course, he can go out and travel the world, but I'm too shy or I'm too afraid or whatever. Help these people get over the hump of traveling because that I tell you is probably one of the best things you can do for your development, for yourself, and for your life experience. How do you beat that fear, man? Like getting out of the comfort zone. Talk to the people.
Well, this is one aspect of what I hope to accomplish
Mm,
through my journey and what I'm doing is to inspire other people. I can vividly remember talking to a girl who I went to university with that lived and taught in South Korea and Thailand, talking to a guy that I used to work with who lived and worked in Japan, and just bombarding them with questions like, what if this happens? How did you get past this? And if
mm,
I didn't talk to them, there's a chance that I would have just been too scared to do it.
right.
So having somebody in front of you that's already done it can push you to get past that. You go, okay, it's possible. They can do it. Yeah, maybe they're not as social or adventurous as me, but there are also safer, more calm ways to go about it. I was
Yeah.
trying to eat mouse and live worms and everything when I got over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I took it to another level, but you
Sure.
don't have to do that. You can get an apartment and you can just go to language exchange clubs and meet local friends. There's easy ways to do it. But I think seeing someone like me come
Mm.
from America, never left the country, and then took a trip for 1 year and then turned it into an 8 year just growth where things have, changed so much for me.
So you just got to take the chance. You just got to get on the plane at some point, right?
Yeah. So I
Well,
will drop it on here. Hopefully,
uh,
I can get everything together. But my goal now is to write a book about this whole thing.
mhm.
I did a podcast in Vietnam with Michael Covell, who is a great author. He's written like 7 books, and I jumped on his podcast, and he's been encouraging me to write a book about my journey.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's his field of expertise. So hopefully, the book can be served to inspire because behind you, I see the Never Finished with David Goggins.
Mm.
And I will say, is Can't Hurt Me was a huge inspiration for me for a
Same.
lot of personal things, a lot of physical goals. And reading that book changed a lot about me. So I hope to one day write something and create something that people will read or watch or follow and go,
Mhm.
I can do that too. Or at least to a smaller degree, I can change something, try something new, travel to a new place.
Dude, I have no doubt that's what's going to happen. And I think you're doing it from the right standpoint, which is a genuine desire to share your experience, share your world, open up your life to people so they can be inspired. I mean, hell, you inspired me. I've been to Vietnam 3 times, haven't been there probably 15 years, but now I'm like, shoot, maybe I need to go back to Vietnam. But whether it's Vietnam, whether it's whatever, to help people get out there to see the rest of the world and see how beautiful cultures are and how beautiful people are, I think is probably the biggest gift. And that, my friend, is what you're doing. You're
Yes.
giving that gift to people. So I thank you for that. Before I let you go, plug yourself a little bit, and I'll make sure I'll link everything on the description. But where can they find you?
All right. Thank you, sir. Every platform from YouTube to Facebook to Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Just Fukmat Vlog, no accents, all one word. If you type in Dep Chai Nyat Saigon on Google, I guarantee the whole first page is me. Trust me. And yeah, if you guys are interested in Vietnam, Vietnamese, the culture, the food, all around the country, I think you will benefit from following me on those platforms. And if you want to learn Vietnamese, well, as you've seen recently, I've been teaching Vietnamese on Instagram. So even if you are Vietnamese in heritage and need to brush up on some words, you can follow my channel for more.
And just so you guys know, Phuc means blessing. So thank you, my brother, for blessing me with your time. Chúc mừng năm mới. I wish you a lot of success. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with wanting a little bit of money too. So a lot of wealth and health in your family and continue to grow, brother, please. And let's stay in touch and let's connect offline as well too.
Thank you, sir. I'd
Thank
be
you
happy to take part in this again. It was a good experience.
for sure. Take care, brother.